Recording in progress.
If I stood out in the rain night, my only light a candle a million miles away, would you lay down your fire as I raised mine? Would you not kill again? Welcome to Community Church, everybody. Good afternoon, for a change, not morning. We did that for a while a few years ago and liked it. And we haven't done it again, but this is great. You were able to go to your morning church obligation and then come here afterwards. We encourage that. We love religious infidelity of that sort. Welcome to Community Church again, and I just want to open with a song that's a celebration of the words of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Get a note. There is no freedom, a wise man said, let justice roll down, roll down. When the poor cry out for shelter and bread, let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we will make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Hatred will never drive out hate. Let love roll down, roll down. Remember, our hearts can make us great. Let love roll down like a mighty stream. The chorus, oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we will make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. When fists rise up to strike a blow, are we in this? When fists rise up to strike a blow, let peace roll down, roll down. Let the poets remind us of what we know. Let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we will make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Brutality will threaten our daughters and sons. Let songs roll down, roll down. May our voices be heard above the guns. Let songs roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we will make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Doo-doo, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-da-da, ba-da-ba-da, ba-da-ba-da, oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we will make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Step by step and one by one, let justice roll down, roll down. They can kill the prophet, but the dream lives on. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we will make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Let justice roll down, roll down. Let justice roll down, roll down. Let justice roll down, roll down. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Yes. My long time friend Willie Sordillo walked in with his sax, and we didn't even know he was coming. He was playing at Old South this morning, and here he is, so we got him incorporated immediately. Thank you all for being here. I'm just going to take as little time as possible doing some churchy stuff, like tell you that next week we have Reggie Gibson, Massachusetts Poet Laureate. Week after that we have Dr. Harriet Fraud, who is a psychiatrist with a socialist perspective, something like that. A bunch of great events coming up. I'd like to, it's in the newsletter, which is back there. Thank you, Crystal Rollins Jackson, for the beautiful newsletters you produce for us. I also want to tell you about a film that's going to be the first one in a series this winter. It's called The Next Dream. This is Saturday, January 24th, 3 p.m., and this is about TPS, Temporary Protected Status, which is the immigration status that's been withheld from people from a bunch of different countries. And this is a documentary about that. It's also a complete El Salvador celebration. We're going to have pupusas and tamales and lots of food and lots of camaraderie to watch this film. We have 2 more films in the month of March so far scheduled. One is called Devout and Dangerous, and it's about the Berrigan brothers. And one is called Valentino's Ghost, and it's about perceptions of Arabs in media. And it's about Palestine and apartheid Israel. So look out for those showings, screenings of different documentaries that are coming up. Go through a bunch of books here that I am super recommending that we have around the church. Corporate Coup by Anya Parampil. It is a very thoroughly researched account of the U.S.'s theft of Venezuelan oil in the last 25 years, and especially the Citgo chain that basically got stolen from them and was bought on fire sale by a billionaire named Paul Singer. I've got 3 copies of a beautiful young adult magazine. It's called Honest History, and I learned about this from the Zinn Education Project. And in this time when the history is trying to be rewritten, this is a great source for kids. Stories, activities, comics, adventure. The Adventure Magazine for Young Historians. I love these. Thank you, Zinn Education Project. This is another little note of thanks for last week's program that was delivered by Yemi Prince Ogunyemi from Nigeria, and he was talking about Yoruba values and philosophy. I just want to read this. He's written so many books, Yemi has. Here's the first description of Yoruba folk philosophy. The world is created out of unconditional love. Thus, the Yoruba people believe that whosoever cannot love himself to love others has a broken destiny. The 9 cardinal virtues: fortitude, honesty, honor, justice, love, morality, prudence, temperance, and valor, in Yoruba culture are the guidelines for the Yoruba people. These virtues, as poetized below, are to be found in their folk philosophy as well as in their prophetic religion. This is a book by Yemi Prince Ogunyemi, a member of the church. It's called Martin Luther King Jr. and Other Poems. Check it out. Another book I love, a former speaker at Community Church, both in the 80s and recently, Stephen Kinzer, The True Flag, Theodore Roosevelt, Mark Twain, and the Birth of American Empire. It's basically about gunboat diplomacy in the early 20th century and the birth of American imperialism before the Spanish-American War, and the notion that we have to go conquer the world, which is back. Finally, Eduardo Galeano, Children of the Days. It's a book I love to read from. It kind of reminds me of what my parents called Daily Light, that we read after dinner in our evangelical missionary household. Except this is very different from Daily Light. It's not Bible verses and interpretation. This is Eduardo Galeano in short vignettes talking about the history of the Americas. And this is January 18th. Holy water. In time of the Holy Inquisition, Spaniards who bathed were suspected of Muslim heresy. From Muhammad came the adoration of water. Muhammad was born in the desert back in the year 570. And there in the kingdom of thirst, he founded the religion of water seekers. He said what God, Allah, had told him to say. On the road to salvation, one must pray 5 times a day, bending down until the chin touches the ground, and before each prayer, one must purify oneself with water. Cleanliness is half of faith, he said. Eduardo Galeano, Children of the Days. Just a little word about what's going on at Community Church. We had an amazing thing happen this week. Friday at 7 a.m. in the morning, Ken Gloss, owner of the Brattle Bookshop, came with his staff, and with his staff and our staff, we moved 55 boxes of books out of here, a mountain of books that we inherited from Bob Datilio 4 years ago, and loved every minute of having them, but realized that they take up a lot of space, and they were not necessarily of general public interest. So Ken bought them from us, and they're gone, and it means we have a whole new space up there, conference center on the 3rd floor, or conference room on the 3rd floor. We had our first meeting this morning. It was Sunrise Movement having an organizing meeting up there. If you don't know, we host a whole lot of different organizations who have meetings and organizing right here at the church. Muslims for Progressive Values, Veterans for Peace, Sunrise Movement, Extinction Rebellion, the list goes on. So this is just a new opening for us to have that as a second meeting space for all kinds of groups and organizations. The 3rd floor conference center. The other thing that's just amazing is that Jerry Kaplan, our wonderful volunteer, 3 days a week he's here as a volunteer, and he completely curated the Sacco Vanzetti archive that we also inherited from Bob Datilio, all kinds of primary source materials. All of that went out the door about 3 weeks ago to the Boston Public Library, who gladly received them because of the meticulous attention that Jerry gave to these materials, and it increases the size of their archive by about 70%. So it's a magnificent thing. And the best thing about it is that now Jerry, with his faithful lieutenant, yours truly, is going to tackle our 5th floor, which has 105, now 106 years worth of Community Church of Boston archives. And they're in fairly good order, but need a lot of attention and restoration and meticulous detail that a professional archivist like Jerry Kaplan can do. So that's what's going on at Community Church. We also have our new tenant who continues to produce magnificent sandwiches on really fresh baked bread that comes wafting up through the building. All's well here. Thank you for being here. I want to go ahead and call Charles' grandson up here to introduce Larry Watson. It's just really a pleasure to have Larry back. He was with us about 7 years ago and has a lot to update us on and to soulfully beautify and enrich our lives. And Charles' grandson is here providing Larry with technical expertise, and he's going to introduce Larry. Thank you, Charles.
Thank
you. Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. Good evening, everyone. All right, we can do better than that. Good evening. Good evening. All right. Well, it is a great honor to be here this evening with you all and to introduce Today's presentation in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Black Amnesia, White Pathology, celebrating the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Lawrence Larry Watson is a musician and educator and activist, born in Brooklyn, New York, and raised in the Baptist Church. He has nurtured a spirit for justice and equality his entire life. After graduating from the State University of Oswego, State University of New York at Oswego, Watson went on to teach at the Auburn State Prison, and then shortly after went on to complete a Master's of Professional Studies in Africana Studies at Cornell University. Watson would then go on to become a senior level administrative dean at Cornell University, and then a senior level dean at Harvard University. And over the last 2 decades, had a wonderful career as a professor at Berklee College of Music, where he is now Professor Emeritus. As a dedicated educator, Watson taught not just about performance, but about the long histories behind all of the music they would learn, deepening the learning experience for his students. He coined the term highly emotional music to describe that very phenomenon, and you can purchase the book also by that title at lawrencewatson.com or SaveOurSelvesProductions.com, as well as on Amazon. In addition to his teaching and writing, he is also an accomplished performer, having sung alongside the greats like Green and Smokey Robinson, and has traveled across the globe to perform for many music and justice-oriented people like himself, including President Barack Obama, President Nelson Mandela, and the Honorable Reverend Desmond Tutu. Watson is currently focused on writing his next book, Black Amnesia, White Pathology. Ladies and gentlemen, I now welcome Lawrence Watson.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is a song I imagine Martin once sang to God. I began to give up on me when I took a look at reality. I said, what am I still trying for? Lord, you don't need me anymore. It must have been something that I had done to make you choose another one. I said, why am I still in this race? Oh Lord, I'm losing my place. Then he told me, I still want you. He said, I still need you. He said, nobody else can do what I want you to do. That's why I created you. He said, Martin, I am the one who knows who you are. I'll take you near and I'll take you far. He said, I'll never leave you alone. You'll never be on your own. He said, now, don't you worry, don't you fret. are important to me. Then he told me, I still want you. I still want you. He said, I still need you. I still need you. He said, nobody else can do what I want you to do. That's why I created. I still want you. I still want you. He said, I still need you. I still need you. He said, nobody else can do what I want you to do. That's why I created. I still want you. He said that I still need you. Nobody can do what I want you to do. That's why I created you. That is a song by the great Tremaine Hawkins. And when I came to Boston, I worked for 5 years as an administrative dean in the grad school of design. And after much hubbub, I thought I was our great track runner, Jesse Owens, who was at the Olympics, and he said, I know when I get through, Hitler's gonna come down and gonna shake my hand. Hitler left and didn't come and acknowledge his win at all. And I spent 5 years at the grad school of design at Harvard trying to prove my humanity, trying to prove that I was qualified. And although I did exemplary work, and I turned the place around. When I came there was one black woman sitting up on the 5th floor by the bathroom. There were no people of color or students in the school. And by the time I, quote, left, all of the departments were being run by women of color. When I left, the dean's executive secretary was an Asian woman, very progressive and very involved. When I left, there were students throughout the building in the graduate programs, but it didn't matter. But I drew from what I had known, the work of Dr. King and others, and I really had the tenacity and the strength to draw from that old song by James Cleveland, I don't feel no ways tired. I've come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, but I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. Then I'd walk down the hall to the bathroom, and in my head I'd say, I don't feel no ways tired. I've come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, but I don't believe he brought me this far. I don't believe He brought me this far. Sing, I don't believe he brought me this far. I don't believe he brought me I don't believe, don't believe. Yeah, he brought me I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. And I'd walk in that office and I'd take some more abuse. But you know what? I'm tired. I am tired. When I think about the work of Dr. King and the sacrifices he made, all last night I stayed up and I watched all of these documentaries and I was just floored. And I thought, nobody watches this stuff anymore or feels the pain or looks in his eyes and know that he was serious. He was convicted and he was determined for his mission to be successful. And so I want to say thank you to those of you who came today. I'm honored that I was invited here to speak. I've come out of semi-retirement. This is the first time I've sung and made a presentation in months. And so it's a privilege to be here in this sacred space. And I hope that you will take my comments today and my music as a part of the same theme and a part of the same commitment. We've been doing a lot of singing and dancing and talking and being polite. And while we've been doing that, the democracy is in peril. While we've been doing that, if you are a person of spiritual beliefs, the saints have said, I'm not going down there and dealing with that. No, you'll do it. I'm gonna hang out up here because this is too much. This is like, as the great black comedian Moms Mabley used to say, this is like pushing a car up a hill with a rope. Think about it for a moment. And so tonight we remember what a bridge once carried. And now, why is it that that bridge that matters so much is so frail and so weak? What happened to courage? What happened to outspoken people? What happened to my mentor and someone who was my congresswoman when I was a young boy, Shirley Chisholm, who wrote that book, Unbought, Unbossed? What happened to those loud voices that spoke out against injustice and were not penalized for it or accused of being anti-American? What has gone on? We have become so relaxed and so into this idea of being civil. We're so civil. If somebody steps on your toe 4 or 5 times and they say, oh, excuse me, and you say that's all right. Well, I've never said that's all right. So well, you stepped on my toe 3 times. Don't do it again. You need to watch where you're walking. Oh, he has an attitude. Oh, he's bitter. He's angry. Well, as James Baldwin said, I'm going to quote James Baldwin a lot tonight as somebody who was one of Dr. King's contemporaries and somebody who has left an indelible impression on America. He said to be Negro in America and to be relatively conscious of it is to be enraged almost all the time. So tonight when I talk and I sing, I want you to know that you don't have to accept the social construction of whiteness, nor do I have to accept the social construction of blackness. I'm a human being, and I'm not going to answer to very many other titles except that I'm human, and because everything in America is stratified, I got to be black, because everything is color-coded. But when we come to the concept of whiteness, you can make a choice. You don't have to embrace all of that. So when I call this presentation Black Amnesia and White Pathology, some people were concerned about that. One of my good friend of mine, young white woman, she said, well, Larry, why don't you consider changing the title to Black Amnesia, White Amnesia? I said, no, because white people haven't forgotten anything. And so no, black people have forgotten a whole lot. We've forgotten that we were one of the original people on the planet. We've forgotten so much of our history. And so we got to look at this idea that for black people, in many instances, amnesia was a way to support your physical and mental health. My mother used to always say, I said, Mama, you know, going down the highway, I said, did Willie Jr. ever come up and stay with us? Someone, no, I don't know, I don't remember. Oh, that's a pretty building over there. Look at them trees. Look at the leaves. Because she didn't want to deal with Willie Jr., what we want to talk about. So she found a way always, no matter somebody would say, I would say, Mama, she's in a nursing home now, I'd say, you remember when Daddy told us about, no, I don't remember that. Oh, but I'm hungry. Y'all got anything in there? You got any sweets? And so she would always try, and I know many of you have experienced people like this. She would not, and it wasn't that she was in a denial. It was to protect her heart and her being. It was just too much to bear. And so I remember when I went to see the movie Bamboozle and took my students to see the movie Bamboozle, and when the movie was over, I was going to hold a lecture, but it triggered me, the movie Bamboozle by Spike Lee. It triggered me. When I saw all those figurines, all of those stereotypical caricatures of black people, it took me back to being 3 and 4 years old and seeing this stuff on TV and didn't know that this stuff was so close to my heart. And so I went home and I was telling my mom about the film. And my mother said, well, I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know nothing about white and black water fountains. And me and my brothers attacked my mother. We're like, you're just in denial. This is ridiculous. How could you say you didn't know that? And you grew up in Bennettsville, South Carolina. How could you say you didn't know anything about it? My mother's 93. How could you say? And so she then, when we listened, all of us have got to listen. That's why I want to define when I talk about whiteness or I talk about blackness. She said, we were so poor, we never went downtown. We wore crocus bags from potatoes as skirts that my mother made for us. She said, we never saw white people except for Mr. John, who lived next door to us, and he was poorer than we were. And so Mr. John would eat our scraps, and Mr. John would play Santa Claus every year and come out. And so I said, really? She said, yes. I said, what did Mr. John call your father? She said, well, I said, your father was a minister, right? Yeah, he was Reverend Blair. I said, what did Mr. John call him? She said, he called him Thomas. That was his first name. And we stopped. I said, and your father was a senior citizen, and he was a reverend, and he called him Thomas, but your father called him Mr. John? And she was devastated, because it's the first time she realized how stratified and how inferior Mr. John, who ate their scraps, saw her and her father and her family. So tonight we remember that bridge. That bridge is frail now. We all have examples of that. And tonight is going to be lecture, and it's going to be an incredible film made by an incredible young filmmaker who's here tonight for you all to enjoy that film. His name is Lake Caleb Dixon, and he has done a great job on a film that I made at my anniversary of alumni. We came back, and the reason I'm going to show that film later on in this session is that we are all, me and my classmates, we're all Dr. King's children. We are the example of how much people have tried to erase his work and other work. The point is that we are alive. There used to be a show on Broadway, and one of the songs, Keep Coming, and it was about black folks and brown folks and oppressed people, that you can't kill them, that they're still here and they're still coming regardless of what happens. So we're going to see that film later, and I'll introduce Lake Dixon to all of you, and he will talk a bit about his genius work. And the reason I'm glad that he is here, and Dr. Charles Granson, who helped me, was one of my former students at Boston College, and so I'm very proud of him, and we've got some other people that are supposed to come. I want to show 3 or 4 generations of black folks. This is the example of Dr. King's work, not some of this foolishness we hear right now being said by people around America. So I'm going to be, Dr. Granson's going to keep me on time because I come out of the black tradition of oratory overwhelmingness. And so I know that we have a time clock, and so I'm going to keep it moving. But right now, what I want to do is explain my title of the book I'm writing, Black Amnesia. I've already said a few things about black people intentionally and deliberately forget certain things because it's too painful to remember. But now we're going to show little vignettes by the great writer Toni Morrison, the late Toni Morrison, and the late James Baldwin. And I hope all of you who feel a little uncomfortable about it will recognize that everything I'm going to say today and sing about has already been sung about and have already been articulated. But I want to give a footnote and a reference to my comments by listening to what Dr. Toni Morrison had to say and what James Baldwin had to say. Are you ready, Dr. Grant Charles? Here we go.
And you have more in common with a white author than you have with someone who's against all literature. So why must we always concentrate on color or on religion or this? There are other ways of connecting men.
I'll tell you this. When I left this country in 1948, I left this country for one reason only, one reason. I didn't care where I went. I might have gone to Hong Kong, I might have gone to Timbuktu, I ended up in Paris, on the streets of Paris, with $40 in my pocket on the theory that nothing worse could happen to me there than had already happened to me here. You talk about making it as a writer by yourself. You have to be able then to turn up all the antenna with which you live, because once you turn your back on this society, you may die. You may die. And it's very hard to sit at a typewriter and concentrate on that if you're afraid of the world around you. The years I lived in Paris did one thing for me. They released me from that particular social terror, which was not the paranoia of my own mind, but a real social danger visible in the face of every cop, every boss, everybody. I don't know what most white people in this country feel, but I can only include what they feel from the state of their institutions. I don't know if white Christians hate Negroes or not, but I know that we have a Christian church which is white and a Christian church which is black. I know, as Malcolm X once put it, that the most segregated hour in American life is high noon on Sunday. That says a great deal for me about a Christian nation. It means that I can't afford to trust most white Christians and certainly cannot trust the Christian church. I don't know whether the labor unions and their bosses really hate me. That doesn't matter, but I know I'm not in their unions. I don't know if the real estate lobby has anything against black people, but I know the real estate lobbies keep me in the ghetto. I don't know if the Board of Education hates black people, but I know the textbooks I give my children to read and the schools that we have to go to. Now, this is the evidence. You want me to make an act of faith, risking myself, my wife, my woman, my sister, my children, on some idealism which you assure me exists in America, which I have never seen.
Toni Morrison, Pulitzer Prize winner, successful, honored in the halls of academe, etc. Still have that encounter?
Yes, I do, Charlie, but let me tell you, that's the wrong question.
Okay, what's the right question?
How do you feel? Not you, Charlie Rose, but don't you understand that the people who do this thing, who practice racism, are bereft? There is something distorted about the psyche. It's a huge waste, and it's a corruption and a distortion. It's a profound neurosis that nobody examines for what it is. It feels crazy. It is crazy. And it has just as much of a deleterious effect on white people, and possibly equal, as it does black people. I always knew that I had the moral high ground all my life. I always thought those people who said I couldn't come in the drugstore and I had to sit in these funny places, I couldn't go in the park.
You felt morally superior to them
I
from
did.
day one.
And I thought they knew that I knew that they were inferior to me morally. I always thought that. And my parents always thought that.
You said your father was racist because he always felt like he was superior.
That's right. He always felt superior. And that was a form, of defensive racism. But if the racist white person, I don't mean the person who is examining his consciousness and so on, doesn't understand that he or she is also a race, it's also constructed, it's also made, and it also has some kind of serviceability. But when you take it away, I take your race away. And there you are, all strung out, and all you got is your little self. And what is that? What are you without racism? Are you any good? Are you still strong? You still smart? You still like yourself? I mean, these are the questions. It's part of it is, yes, the victim, how terrible it has been for black people.
But you don't like that.
I'm not a victim. I refuse to be one.
And the victim is the other person who is morally inferior and
That's a serious
to hold
question.
on to
Of course.
racism
If you
to
have to
somehow
hold,
for his or her own self-esteem and definition.
if you can only be tall because somebody's on their knees, then you have a serious problem. And my feeling is white people have a very, very serious problem. And they should start thinking about what they can do about it. Take me out of it.
So I offer that because it's important for us to understand that history is preface. That the remarks of the great Toni Morrison, the remarks of the great James Baldwin, the books by Frantz Fanon, people have talked about this for years and sung about it. You remember the great Nina Simone, Mississippi, goddamn. And so I think it's important for us to recognize that amnesia and pathology, when we use the social sciences and the humanities and the physical sciences, and all of those areas have talked about the physical inferiority of people from certain parts of the world, when we felt that it is justified whatever we did, if we did it to make America strong when it meant the destruction of others, that's okay. And it really is okay when we look at public policy and we look at what's happening, when we're punishing poor people and homeless people and others, and we're stopping American citizens on the street because the hue of their skin makes you suggest to you that they may be from one of these countries and they have infiltrated and come across the borders illegally. It's just outrageous. And so the next piece I'm going to do for you that reinforces that is one I dedicate to the late Charles Ogletree. Did you remember Dr. Ogletree, who was my best friend and who defended Anita Hill? If you don't remember that, he was the lawyer that defended Anita Hill, and every white or black or brown person that had a problem, you could always call on Charles Ogletree, always, to be the defender. I don't see very many people around like that these days, and it hurts me deeply. But years ago, I wrote a song that I'm dedicating tonight to Dr. King and to Dr. Ogletree, who's no longer with us. And to all of those of you here in the audience, and I know there are many of you, and I don't want to embarrass any of you, who have been a tree with limbs and branches, and that you have done your best, and I want to commend you and hope you will continue to do your best. So let's do the tree. Times like these, they fall short. They can't express what's deep in our hearts. You fight 'cause you love, you have no choice. Evil takes cover when the pigeon-toed soldiers wage their war. You hold water like a sponge, and and you fight until the war is won. You're always there for your friends. Nothing can dim that light that shines within. You are a tree from the first African dawn, from Togo to Arkansas, roots so deep with memories of a time when we were free. Spirit in the deep, let the time you never free, for the common folks who've lost their way. You fight for that what is right, and you know the war is won. The Louimas in your life, Big Mama and Big Daddy paid the price. Ooh, you are a tree from the first African dawn to Togo to Arkansas, roots so deep with memories of a time when we were free. Branches sweet with nourishment, sturdy limbs that never bend, in a common world that's lost its way. Patience and endurance, winning in secret prayer. Your roots run deep, you've touched our hearts, yes you have. You just won't quit because justice deferred is justice denied. You have been there from the very start. You are a tree. Encouraging patience, winning endurance, secret prayer. Nothing can dim the light that shines within so bright it blinds despair. Trip for the freedom. You got to keep on fighting. And it's a tree of freedom, it's a tree of justice. This train stands for justice. This train stands for freedom. It's the tree. My work is about portraiture, and portraiture is a blend of the arts and the sciences to captivate and to capture human complexities. One of the pioneers in this area is the incredible and a good friend of mine, Sarah Lawrence Lightfoot, Dr. Sarah Lawrence Lightfoot, who has documented this notion of portraiture that covers institutions and all kind of relationships and life stories. We should not discount or cheapen our stories. Our stories are another way that the history, the pain, and the joy is carried forward. I only won't forgive my mother for two things. I talk about my mom a lot. I'm a mama's boy. I talk about a lot. The first is Dr. King was speaking at Cornerstone Baptist Church in Brooklyn. Now, for some of you in the audience, this is one of the biggest, most prominent black churches in Brooklyn. It's the church that Stephanie Mills, the great singer who originated the role of the Wiz on Broadway. And this was Stephanie Mills' church, and everybody knew her long before she went to Broadway because she went to Cornerstone. I was baptized at Cornerstone Baptist Church by the great minister Sandy F. Ray. This was big, big stuff. Sandy F. Ray baptized me, and my minister in Brooklyn was a Reverend Chambers. But when it was time for the baptism, I went as a young, 12 years old or so, and Reverend Ray baptized me. Mama said, that's why you're different from some of the rest of them, because you was baptized. But the point is that when Dr. King was coming to speak at Cornerstone, and I said, Mama, I was like in middle school. I said, Dr. King is coming. I want to go see him. And she wouldn't let me go because she was afraid of violence breaking out. And it was such a lost moment, and I remember it well. And the second one, I believe you could tell the whole story. My father didn't have a high school diploma. He had stopped school in the 6th grade because he had to pick cotton and tobacco. They grew up in sharecropping times. So my father, when I was in middle school, I'm not ashamed to tell these stories because they're real, because he raised me and 2 other sons, and he did an incredible job. He's no longer with us, but he worked, and he felt that a black man without a job was a slave. So he wouldn't even take vacation. My mother had to call his boss and lie and say, my husband's in the hospital, or he's sick and he can't come to work. And then I would do things. This was the time I got to college. I would send tickets to them and say, hi, how you doing? I know you're going to have next week off because Daddy's not working, right? That's right. Well, there's 2 tickets that are coming for Aruba, but y'all have to be on the plane tomorrow in the afternoon, and I can't get my money back. And so if you don't get to the airport tomorrow afternoon, I'll lose all the money. Bye, click, and I'd hang the phone up. Oh, they were furious. But they went to Aruba, and that's what I'd have to do. I have to do that for them. But my father would go to the elementary school to try to get his high school diploma, and I would walk holding his hand. And this big black man would walk to the school and sit in them little ass chairs. I don't even have one here that small. There's these little chairs at elementary school, and he'd sit there working on his alphabets and on math and on this and that. And my mother, as charitable and wonderful as she was as a mother and as a wife, she was, I would say now that I'm old looking, she was a little intimidated by the fact that if he was going back to school and he'd get his high school diploma, he might leave her because she didn't have hers either. So in the spirit and tradition of the dozens, and any people in the audience know about the dozens, that black folks playing with, they said, look at you with your big behind walking up in that elementary school, sitting in them little chairs going to school with those kids. And she would laugh, and he was all, Thelma, stop. And he would laugh, but he really wouldn't laugh. And I was just pissed. So finally he stopped going. Now we can look back in retrospect with our proper education and our rationality and our experience, but I understand now what was going on. We had dinner together every night as a family. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, he better be home, and we all sat, me and my 2 brothers, and we had dinner, and we always went to church on Easter Sunday, and we had a car. We lived in the projects, we had a car. That was like a big deal. We were the Watsons, and she was comfortable with that, and he was too. And so I tell that story when we're talking about these stories. They tell us so much about what our parents and what our relatives went through during that period. And so I remember the Shirley Chisholms. I remember my aunts and my uncles. I remember when I came to Boston to live and to work at Harvard, I met Elma Lewis and Ruth Batson and Jean McGuire. You all may know some of those names. And Amanda Houston from Boston College. And one of my great mentors, the late Dr. Loretta Williams. And these people helped to mold me. And with Loretta Williams, she went to a conference by the Universalists. She was a Universal Unitarian. I have to tell this story. And she met one of my white colleagues, female, who was a dean at Cornell with me. I was very young when I was appointed. And the reason I was appointed is because the dean of the college was a Jewish professor in psychology. He said, I'm sick of all these white people around, these older white people. I got to diversify the staff. So I was just finishing grad school. And so he said, we're going to appoint somebody in this position who can relate to these students. So I got appointed at a very, very young age, very, very, very young age, right out of grad school to this position. And a lot of people were upset about that. The people you would least expect would be upset. Many of them were black and brown people who felt, damn, I could have had that job. I didn't get that young boy this job, and they were annoyed. So this dean that was a dean with me went to this Universalist conference, and she saw Loretta, and they started talking. She said, oh, a colleague of mine, Larry Watson, just got appointed to a deanship at Harvard. I don't think he's ready for it. I don't think he'll be able to do it. Can you look out for him when you go back to Boston? Can you have lunch with him or dinner with him or something? So this woman out of the blue called me, Dr. Loretta Williams, and said, hi, let's have lunch in Harvard Square. I said, okay. So we get to Harvard Square. We're having lunch, and I'm going off. These crazy ass people, I'm going off about Harvard. I'm going off on all of it. And I said, it reminds me of that Peggy Lee song. If that's all there is, my friend, then let's keep dancing. Because I said, these people are not smart. This is ridiculous, you know. And she said, yeah, you'll be fine. And I said, excuse me? I said, excuse me, what did you say? She said, yeah, you'll be fine. I said, what are you saying? She said, one of your colleagues told me to look out for you because you thought you were in over your head. And so she wanted me to be a mentor to you. Well, I stayed with Loretta through all of that craziness. Craziness like the dean would be in his office and open the window and scream down at the people working on the lawn or working in the street, keep that noise down! And he would do all kind of stuff like that, and everybody would justify it. And so once my first meeting, when I first got appointed, I can't go into all the details because it's too long. We're not going to be here that long, but I want to tell these portraiture stories. I went to a meeting, and it relates to this today, when I finally agreed to accept the job, because when I first interviewed with him, he was so obnoxious. I got up in the interview and said, this interview is over. I have a job at Cornell. I don't need this. And so I'm going back home, and I'll just chalk this up as the experience of interviewing at Harvard. Thank you, goodbye. And I walked out. When I went over to the personal office, she said, how did it go? I said, well, I left. That man's crazy. I walked out. That man is crazy. Well, anyway, he called me back at Cornell and said, I'm so sorry how I acted, and and you have so much you can offer me, and I accepted the job. Guess what day he had me to start the job? January the 15th on MLK Day. And I went into the first meeting with all the chair, and he was cursing everybody out and throwing books at Jim. They were ducking. And so I went to the one chair who had a Latino surname, Spanish. I said, what is this all about? All my life I've been told Harvard this and Harvard that, and these people are throwing books and cussing each other out. He said, well, they're European and Latino. It's acceptable. And I thought, boy, I'm in for a long ride. It was a long, long and winding road, as the Beatles say. But at any rate, I think those stories are significant and important for us to remember our childhood and things that we went through. And so I want to now, Charles, is our film ready? Okay, great. I want to introduce this film to you all because the people in this film are everyday black and brown folks who are where they are, all of us, because of Dr. Martin Luther King. His dream has not died. We need to do more than be dreaming these days, though. And this is at the reunion that I had with my classmates. And over the years, we've all stayed together in love with each other. And my good friend Zakia Alake is here from Boston, and she attended that great event with me. And the reason it came about, I have to tell a story real quick, is I was coming back to the reunion, and they said, Larry, are you coming to the reunion? I said, yeah, I'm going to come. I said, you all are going to tape it, though, because the next reunion that comes up, we'll all be dead. I mean, many of us will be dead by that point. So he said, and they weren't going to tape it. Now, I had just been to the Roxbury Film Festival, and I went into double action. I said, "No, this is a shame. We're going to miss this great opportunity." And I met a number of people. I met this young filmmaker, and he made so much sense, and he was so bright to be so young. It was incredible. So I said to him, "Look, these people at Oswego are not going to film this alumni celebration. And I don't know you that well, but would you be willing to do it?" And he said, "Well, I'll get back to you." And he came back and said, "Yes, I'll do it." And he came to Oswego. All of the administration, everybody just were blown away. And we did this film, and I'm premiering it and showing it to you all tonight. We've still got some little last minute things to do. But I'm going to call on Lake Dixon to come up and introduce his film. Let's give him a round of applause.
Hello, can everybody hear me? Good evening. Larry's a little bit taller than me. Wonder if I can do that. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming out to celebrate Martin Luther King. I've been sitting in the back while I'm listening to Larry talk and wondering how I should introduce this, because it's funny, this really didn't start as a film. It started as, like Larry said, I'm like, yeah, I'll do this. I'll bring a shoddy little camera, a couple lights, a tripod, we'll do like 1-2 interviews. We did 15 interviews that day. I was there at 7 in the morning, setting up. And the night before I was like, oh, so this is like a real thing, okay. All right, that's lovely. This is definitely not what I thought I signed up for. But at the same time, I was like, this is a challenge that I really enjoy. And I love the fact that this is actually gonna turn into a bigger project. And when we watched it back, listening to everything that they said, listening to this is something I'll talk about in a quick second, just like the ambiance of the room, I was like, this is it. This is exactly what we're trying to do, and record the history that has for so long not really been acknowledged, not really been remembered. This is why I do what I do. This is why we do what we do. This is why we're all sitting in this room, And so one of the things, I was basically sitting back there, I'm like, oh, what am I gonna say? Because I found out that I was speaking an hour ago. There were two parts of this that I deeply loved. The first part was during the actual filming of this. Because we were filming 15 people that were found during the day, we had to balance having them in the room and out of the room. At least for me, when I was looking and listening to the sound, I was like, I don't like it when everybody's outside the room and talking, because I can just hear them that way. So I was like, let's bring everybody in. Now, if you've done anything with film, that's usually the biggest red flag. For sound-wise, because it's like, God forbid, somebody burps, somebody farts, somebody, I don't know. It's like, oh, I forgot to turn my ringer off. That's now in your film. I had a lot of fun editing this, yes. But what we got in it that was so much more invaluable was the affirmation for each of the people that went up. Whenever somebody went to go and get interviewed, not only could they look behind the camera and see their classmates, the people that they were talking about actively, but whenever they said something, black folks, come on now. And there is a lot of that came up inside of the interviews, where they would say something and it's like, I'm being actively affirmed. Because one of the things that happens with us so much is we figure out what we had to say in the moment. You know, like, how am I going to say this? I want to be true to the story. And, you know, like, I really am trying to figure out how to convey this emotion that was honestly deeply traumatic. But, you know, these were my people. I was with my people. And that's what got us through it. So to have the person sitting in this environment that's foreign to them, to have a camera, have to talk and answer all these questions, but to see their people right behind, I personally think that allowed us to get some of the stuff that you're going to see in this film so much better than if we just did it in a traditional format. So I just wanted to highlight that, because that is one of the biggest pieces of oral histories, you know, like, where we're able to really create these environments that people feel comfortable to say what they have to say. And that leads me to my second thing, and I really want to keep this quick because I also got to go back there and help figure this out. With oral histories, one of the things we see a lot today is the prevalence of algorithms and technology kind of taking away the importance of reading, the importance of remembering, the importance of texture. In art, we talk a lot about texture, this, you know, how far something is away from something. When you look at a painting, the different paint strokes that you're able to see on it, or in music, you know, the small pieces, the way things happen in stereo, all of that, that's all texture, you know. And when you feel a piece of paper, you think it's flat. Or when you feel a wire, or when you feel a carpet, or your skin, or anything, you recognize that it's not just flat. There are millions of hairs, different fibers that your paper is made out of. You know, your music is, if it's digital, tons and tons of ones and zeros. If it's analog, it's electrons moving through wires. That all adds to this beautiful, beautiful thing that we never acknowledge and recognize truly, that is texture. Now, when I was interviewing these people and, you know, going through editing, one of the big pieces of texture, the affirmations, the mm-hms, the breaths, the coughs that happen probably a million different times in it. And I was like, well, I can't use that perfectly. But also, I think very intentionally about the pauses, the cadence of when somebody speaks. That is so important. We communicate in so many different ways, not just what we say, but how we say it. And so when you listen and hear and watch this, you're going to understand that there are multiple stories happening in this. When people have an opportunity to say their piece, so many things are going on in your brain. How do you say it? What am I saying? But when you feel comfortable, you're in a flow state. You're just talking. You're not thinking intrinsically or intentionally about how you're saying it, and you're going to see how that comes out. And I think that is one of the most beautiful things about documentary and about this project that Larry and I put together. I want to thank Larry for being the stalwart in this. There were a lot of hiccups on the way, and a lot of people who were saying that they want this to be a different thing than what it turned out to be. We need more strong walls today. People who can hold the fort against algorithm, against clean cut, against niceties. James Baldwin believed that love is not being kind to a fault. It is to be raw, it is to be truthful. It is to invoke real change and growth in people. And that's what this film does. That is what Larry has done this full way. And so as I go back there and fix this, I hope y'all enjoy this labor of love over the past year. And thank you so much for being here.
And as you watch it, I want to be clear with you all on one thing. Even though this is a film made by people who graduated many years ago from State University of College at Oswego, it is the story of all black and brown students who went to college, whether they went to Harvard or Yale or Princeton or MIT or Boston College or Boston University or the Sorbonne, that you're going to get what we were and who we are, and how who we are is because of Dr. King's work. We were rounded up. There was no admissions process. There was no admissions process. People came into high schools and middle schools and said, Larry Watson, come here. There's a man that just called me, and there's a special program at this high school. I think you might be interested in it. The ones that they told were interested in it were those of us who were palatable, those of us who had parents who cared about us. For others' children, all the parents cared about their children, but they didn't have the resources that we had. So I want to be clear when you watch this. You won't know any of these people. But I want you to know that these people are your next door neighbors. These people have grandchildren and children who went to school and experienced this. Now, if we wanted to drop a few names, Jerry Seinfeld was my roommate in college. He's not in the film. And Al Roker went to the school, and Al Roker is not in the film, but we talk about Al Roker in the film. And so I want you, when you're watching it, to don't exclude or minimize it, because this is some little school upstate New York in Oswego, New York. This is the story of black and brown people who went to college between 1969 on upward. And this is their story, which is the story of what Dr. King and others were fighting for. It gets me very emotional when I talk about it, because one of the people in this film, we shot this film, he stayed at Oswego for 50 years and worked his way up through the administration, but they didn't give him the presidency. This is the last interview he did. He died the next week. Okay, the film is coming up. I want to say to all of the lovely people on Zoom that I'm so glad to hear that you're here and you got to see this. We're going to make a few changes in this film, a few things, copyright things. Most of it is my original music. There's two things we use, and we got to make an adjustment because we're not paying all that money to some of these music outlets that gouge you out. So we're gonna make a few changes there. But I hope you enjoy it, and I hope all the people viewing from home will be able to see it in its entirety. All right, here we go. You got to ad-lib, you know. You got to fill the space when stuff is not. Okay, here we go.
We came from a distant land, our lives already planned. We came in ships from across the sea, home again we'd never see. And here we are, American fruit with African roots.
I'm very excited about this. This came about spontaneously with no planning. But when I was talking to Jerry in Alumni Affairs and some others, and Jan in the communications department, dean of the School of Communications, I realized that we were having the 50th anniversary coming back of the return to Oz, and the president was being inaugurated. The president happens to be a man of African descent from Nigeria. And I said, just kind of in passing, well, you're going to film part of this or do something with no other ideas in mind, but like being a historian by training, we need to get this stuff documented, because many of the people, including myself, I hope to live another 25, 30 years, but the point is that people are leaving every day in abundance. And so it was important for the Penfield Library to have some kind of chronicle and some kind of documentation of African American people here at this institution that changed this institution, as well as educated and empowered in Oswego County.
Where this land would lead, but our blood would shed all because of the color of our skin, being black. Being black.
I think when I came, there was probably 25 to 35 students of color at the time. And we were the first large influx of students coming to Oswego at that time, to my knowledge, and that's what I was told.
I was very surprised to find out that my year was the first year of Central Bus here in Oswego. So my roommate, who was also from Syracuse and I had known and gone to school with, and she was African American as well, we were excited to go downtown and do some shopping. So we're riding on the bus and just looking around out the window at downtown. And as the bus pulled over to let off some people, there was a family from Oswego, and they stood on the corner and their mouths dropped open and they pointed at us. And in awe, they said, "Niggers."
We were always on guard because we knew where we were. And we knew we were not wanted, pretty much.
You know, I'm walking down the street and this truck comes along and nearly runs into me. And the guy shouts something at me. You know, and people who had been here for a couple of years saying, well, first of all, you're not supposed to be walking in the street because, you know, this is a place that you have no experience with. You have to be careful. Everybody up here doesn't know you or like you.
Because everybody needed to know everybody. I mean, we're on this predominantly white, well, look, we nothing but flies in a buttermilk, damn.
The person who became my wife also came in 1970. Her first roommate came into the room with the mother and the father and the brothers, saw that she was black. The mother said, picked her bags up, told her husband and the brothers, take the stuff back out. We're not. I mean, they didn't want to talk to the resident hall director. They just walked out of the room.
Participate. I was a Black Friar, which was the theater group on campus, and was in the pajama gang. And Ted and I, and Pinky Franklin.
Yes.
You know, all of us were in Black Friars, and that was one of the things I became involved in. We had no idea what the elements were. And it was safer in numbers, even though we weren't threatened, but we knew we could be.
There were very few minorities in Johnson Hall.
But being black, you were going to be in it anyway. We had, like Philip, I think, had said, we had only about 200 blacks total by the time I graduated Oswego. My name is Debbie DeBose Taylor now. I am originally from Gainesville, Florida. I moved to Upper New York State when my parents died, and I lived with my relatives in Syracuse. Now, this is one thing I have noticed since I've come back to the last 3 or 4 reunions of color. The African American students on this campus do not talk to each other. They do not seem to be bonded like we were bonded, and I have to reach out and speak to them. They won't acknowledge you by a head nod or a smile or anything like that, and they're in all these different Greek groups. And I'm like, we were the Greek group, Black Greeks. That's who we were. I mean,
you better speak. You better speak to other people who look like you, or somebody's going to call you out. And I remember someone saying, hello. And I could hear that person say to that, whoever she was speaking to, I said hello. Scaring the brother to death. And I said, ooh, I don't want to be in that situation. What happened? And she told me, every black person needs to speak to each other on this campus because we only have each other.
So tell us a bit about, did you ever spend time, remember there was a Black House? I don't know if you remember.
I lived at the Black House.
There you go.
I lived at the Black House. And for those of you who are watching, it was not a black house.
My name is Elijah Beeman, and I'm from Westchester, White Plains, New York. When I first came, I lived in Oneida. One thing, I had a car. So I drove many of the students back home for the holidays.
I entered Oswego through a program that was then called SEEK. It was later changed to the Equal Opportunity Program.
Arthur became a great champion of the SEEK program. He saw the SEEK program. He said, why don't you have it in State University? So, and finally, it's become something that's essential to the, sort of, how can I say, the vitality of a college.
The early EOP, there were probably 14 staff people. We were all in our early 20s. We were brought on for academics and then advising, counseling, kind of like big sister, big brothers. We were all in our early 20s.
I was walking through the Career Center, a room that was at my high school, and I saw this brochure. And the brochure had this beautiful lake and trees, and it was State University College at Oswego.
I was put on the front of the Equal Opportunity flyer.
So I took the pamphlet and I snuck and applied to State University at Oswego. My guidance counselor, very well-meaning, and a woman who's like my mother, white woman, said to me, we're not going to allow you to apply to four-year colleges because during this era of affirmative action, they might admit you.
EOP here was different from all the other SUNYs. The other SUNYs segregated a lot of the students, first EOP students, into separate classes.
I didn't have the opportunity that the people in 1970 had to come to that summer program.
Basically, it's kind of a Head Start program for your freshman year, whereby instead of having 15 credit hours, you could have 12 credit hours per semester that hopefully was going to set you up for success.
And so Mo Haskins said, we can't admit you to come because you didn't come to the summer program and take these 2 remedial enrichment courses.
Mo Haskins was the director before. He was the first director, and he just stayed a year and a half. So he hired me, but then when I came on, Hubert Smith joined in 1971 as well. And Hubert said, let's not do that. And we all agreed. Let's put this, our students should take classes with everybody, but we should give support where necessary with tutoring, and that's where all you come in.
So then I had a breakdown. So then they finally allowed me, after she wrote the strong letter, that they would allow me to come in the fall. When I came in the fall, most of the black and brown students that had been accepted in that class in 1970 matriculating.
They already knew each other, so there was a bond that group already had before I even, got here. So you kind of have to pull your way into that.
This large influx of black people. Before 1970, in the class of 69, 68, there were scattered few black people.
We thought of ourselves as trailblazers.
That's right.
Because parents and grandparents, made it so that it was possible for us to go to school. Right. Because they sacrificed for us, not just in places down south, but here too.
There were no other black people in any of my education classes. I befriended one friend who was Native American, so we kind of hung together and supported each other.
Very few African Americans is in this particular discipline.
Ted Addles, as he was named, he was an actor, activist. We grew up together, and he went to Oswego. He was going to Oswego at the time, and every time he came home, he was like, Tara, you gotta come to Oswego. You'll like Oswego. We need black people at Oswego.
But one stood out very much so, and he and I became very good friends, named John Harris. And that's where I got to know him, you know, in the technologies education, our technologies education college experience. Of course, John went on to be a preacher.
Ted, a preacher, of all things. But actors are actors.
See, here's the thing. If you're the only one, okay, the only black person, then you were the token, pretty much. And I was that guy.
Emory Porter, a good friend of ours, was one of those persons who said, we need to be more involved, not just in BSU, but extend ourselves.
My name is Emory Porter. I came to Oswego in 1970 and I graduated in 1974. It was our gathering place. We had our own special place right there, and we would tag team. Some people would come in, go to class, come back, go to class, play cards.
BSU was so important to, I mean, we were BSU. You know, everybody was really a part of BSU, and or we wanted everybody to be a part of BSU.
Coming to Oswego, I didn't find anyone in terms of faculty that mirrored me or reflected my identity. But I did find support through students, like my president from BSU, and my inner circle of friends.
What happened to me in 1968 is I read, in my junior year, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. And I just finished the book, and I just said, okay, now you know, and this is going to change your life. It was a time in the country when white people no longer worked in black organizations. So we worked in coalition. Everybody was talking about coalition. They agreed, and so I went and we mimeoed all these invitations to Student Union upstairs, 213, to have an open meeting inviting white students to come and hear about this new organization, the Student Action Movement, SAM. And there were these people, these older men, white men, with boxes of John Birch Society material along the back wall.
So brush the insider's dust out of your eyes, my friends, and the communist soap suds out of your brain, and ask yourselves in all honesty, what on earth is wrong with the United States simply minding its own business to allow the steps of appeasement by our government which amount to a piecemeal surrender of the rest of the free world and of the United States itself?
But a lot of students came, they filled 213, and we formed the organization. Before 1968-69, the organization on campus was Friends of SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And they weren't a chapter of SNCC, but Friends of SNCC. And then Friends of SNCC in 68-69 became the Black and Puerto Rican Student Union, and then, of course, in 1970, BSU was formed.
They seemed really unaware of the larger issues of the day, and those issues were extremely significant. We were children of the 60s. I mean, there were turbulent times.
And I will say directly, no, I will not go 10,000 miles to help or kill innocent people.
And I remember Kent State. At that time, things, you know, around the country, things were in an upheaval.
It was as if they had lived in a bubble somewhere, And they wanted to maintain some sort of country life in an ever-changing world and keep things segregated and people apart, and didn't understand that there were people of different religions, different nationalities.
And that carried on to the campus. And that was one of the reasons why the Black Student Union, the BSU for short, came into being, not because of the unrest.
It's about making space for us and making sure that we have the things we need once we make that space.
It was such a gathering place, in fact, a hub, where, you know, I don't think there was any student, in this case, we're talking about African-American students, I don't care where you were going, north, south, east, west on campus, you would always come through Hewitt Union, whether you had any business there or not, and you in fact did have some business, and it was invaluable. It was invaluable, especially for the students of color.
Now this was something that made Oswego a little bit more human. There was a place called the Hitching Post, where you could hitch a ride with the townies back up to campus, and they would actually stop and give us rides. Those who were more liberal in mind, they would actually stop and give us ride back to campus. The Hitching Post. Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, we would stand there, and they knew that we needed to ride back up to campus. They wanted to have conversations with us. They wanted to know who we were. They wanted to know about our culture. They wanted to know, which was a rarity. It was a rarity, but it at least gave us a feeling that all of Oswegoians were not racist.
My senior year, an interesting thing happened. One of the deans on campus made a relationship with a community college in East St. Louis. I think it was maybe called East St. Louis Community College, and brought, I don't know exactly how many, but it was certainly a large number for our campus, Black students primarily from East St. Louis. They came as transfers. They had 2-year degrees, and so they came in as juniors. So that was a pivotal year. Suddenly there were these, and a few of them were Vietnam vets, so they were a little older. And an organization began my senior year called the Black and Puerto Rican Student Union, and was headed by 2 very dynamic young men. One was a Vietnam vet, Bob Simmons, and his vice president was Oliver Cato.
Bob Simmons was instrumental in getting the BSU started, as was James Rick, Ted Adams, Ollie Cato, and Charlie Durant. There was Yvonne Benton.
Somehow they convinced our president, President Perdue, to allow them to investigate this in the admissions office. There were dead files for applications that were coming from predominantly Black schools in New York City that weren't getting answered or responded to. Now there were no pictures on applications at that time by New York State, SUNY rule, so that would have also excluded any white students perhaps who had applied from those schools. They told the president that. He debated with them and also let the director of admissions go.
Right.
President Perdue was an ally.
Yes.
And there were some faculty on campus who were allies as well, younger faculty.
President Perdue was having a function at his home, the president's home, and they invited me as a student leader. And I went to that event, and people said, so how was your experience at Oswego? And I would say, oh, it was wonderful this way and that way. But as we sat at the dinner table, I said, but I did have an unfortunate experience last week. And they said, really, what happened? And I told the story. I went to the professor and for office hours because I didn't understand standard deviation. And I went to him and I said, I don't understand, I'm coming to your office hour. And he said, well, let me tell you something right now. I believe what Shockley has written in his book. I believe that Black people are genetically inferior. And if you don't get the mean on my exam, I'm going to fail you. A few weeks later, I saw that professor
packing up the U-Haul truck, moving back to Buffalo, New York. Because when I told that story to President Perdue and others, actions were taken.
Full name is Roger Hancock. I'm from Poughkeepsie, New York, on the Mid-Hudson Valley. I graduated in '73, technically, and I got a degree in computer science. I never had any problem in teachers. It's like if you're doing well, they don't give you any problems.
A lot of the black professors, of course, took us under their wing. Virginius Gray Thornton III, there was Dr. LaFleur, Mr. McCullough, and don't forget our South African, Dr. Adrian Roscoe, who was only there for 2 years, but he was a heck of a guy. He invited us to his home. We met his wife and children. We knew Dr. Salori, who was always open to any conversation, always encouraged us.
I had a mentor. His name was David Burr. I think he had an affinity for black students in a way that he liked whatever we did. Whatever we did, he was in it and on it and wanted to be about it. He encouraged me a lot to do my own thing in the theater. And then I connected with my dear friend Jackie Warren Moore.
Jackie Warren was director of a play that we had. I was involved in that. I was her son. She was an icon. You know, there are people that don't have to make front page news. There are people behind the scenes. There's always people who are supporting you, and she was always supportive of everybody.
We did the productions in the experimental theater, myself and Jackie. We came together and we brought black students together to create their own works. And we started to write together. And we decided that we wanted to do black plays. And the first play we did was Sketches. Black men and women. Black men and women. And then we did We Own the Night. And that was Jackie. Because I did Sketches, she did We Own the Night. And as a matter of fact, we actually at that point, the young man by the name of Al Roker. Okay? Al Roker had a radio show. But he was kind of like away from us pretty much. He just stayed pretty much to himself. And we felt the need to bring him involved. So he became our sound guy. And, he came in, he felt a part, but then he went back with the radio show. Al was very visible, but he was visible, but not visible. He stayed he was very private in a sense.
Tell us about your remembrance of Fat Daddy Gigging Get Together that had his own radio show,
Yes.
as well as Bill Lyons.
Yeah, well, first of all, coming from New York, we were used to radio. We were used to, I think it was WRL, WLIB, and Frankie Crocker.
That's right.
And so the guys on campus who created their radio shows, it gave us a place to listen to on campus, and we could listen to our own music. So it was really necessary. And it was like a full circle moment where we felt at home. We felt the need to and they kept us abreast of the music that was going on.
Right.
I started working here, having had the experience working as a graduate assistant for the Educational Opportunity Program. I never thought I would be here, first of all, this long, and when I say this long, it was 42 years that I actually ended up working as an employee here.
After reviving your segment in the Oswegonian, I started writing a few articles, and for me personally, I like to challenge. I like to challenge ideas, I like to challenge perspectives, and I did receive a lot of pushback, especially from the male editors. So writing as a woman, but also writing as a woman of color, I feel like there's multiple obstacles and barriers that comes with that.
My name's Deborah Allen. I came here from the Bronx, New York. I started at Oswego in the land of Oz, in the year 1970, and I graduated in 1974 with a bachelor's of arts in education, secondary education. It's just so different, just being outside and just people just talking and having a good time and sharing, just realizing that in the projects where I grew up in the Bronx, it wasn't that open like that to be able to have something like that. So also too, I was growing up quiet, don't, I mean, just, I was always like with the way my parents raised me, at least my mom raised me. Dad was always at work, but it was always like, don't speak out. I tell you, you listen and you do, and that was it. So it took a little while for me to wake up and find out who I was. What do I want? What's my point of view on this or that? And that's really important, I think, in growing up and finding yourself. So because of that smile, and maybe like you said, effervescence, people figured, they would want to patronize me. Oh, she's so cute. Oh, Debbie is her name. What's her name? And sort of take you for less than who you are. So even in some teaching positions or places I've taught, colleagues would say, oh, you look so cute today. I like that. You look cute. And I would say, no, I'm not cute. Cute is bow-legged, or it's a little girl, a little piglet, a little cat. That's not who I am. Well, what do you want me to call you? Beautiful? I said, not that, but I'm not cute. So it was, at one point I was portraying Harriet Tubman in school to teach the students about, Harriet Tubman in women's history, Black history, and as part of a reading project and whatnot. And then they turned around and said, you look cute. I said, there was nothing cute about Harriet Tubman.
What was the Oswego 4?
Oh, the Oswego 4 got arrested. They were protesting and the cops picked them up instead of the other 100,000 of kids that was out there, because I was with them actually. We're walking up the hill, and one of them says, there's a cop walking in front of us. And somebody says, and actually it wasn't meant for the cop to hear, look at that fat white cop with them white socks on. That's all that was said. And the cop turns around and says, you talking about me? And either Rick's or Ted or Bob, somebody says, well, you the only one that's fat white and got white socks on today. And the next thing I know, and we're only, remember where the police station was at that hill?
Yes.
We're walking up that hill. So he calls his partner and they haul the boys in. We had to get up and go to a judge's house in the middle of the night. And we had like some kind of trial or something. And the judge dismissed the charges. I don't remember. It was mouthing off. It could have been just because they was walking while black. I don't know. I know that Bob and Ted are gone. I believe that Ollie Cater was gone, but Charles Durant is still very much here. I talked to him just last week, and he's doing well. Renee Lafarge was our RA, and she's definitely still around. So there are quite a few people who are still here, but there are those who have left us too soon.
Always listen, I guess, to that voice in your mind that says it's a higher power than who you are, who we are, and stay in touch with it. But also, as you meet people, have someone older than you to seek out advice here or there, someone your age, someone even younger, different perspectives of where you can go and how you see things, Stay in touch with those different levels. Someone younger than you, maybe by 5 years or 10 years or whatever. Someone your same age or within the same generation, and someone older than you to give you a different perspective of how things were and where you're leading to, I think is important. At least I've come to learn that.
And what we're talking about is Oswego Black. And it's really conversations and stories about the Black folks here at Oswego. I'm so moved by them, almost to tears, because there are people who were here before me, Black people here before me, who did the work that I thought I was a pioneer on, right? And they need credit for being the shoulders that I stand on as a Black person in this experience, and it should be celebrated.
And that's what we really need to do, especially our young people today. We need to uplift each other, encourage one another, and it doesn't have to be for any formality. It's just everyday high five, every day, helping either, however you can help in some way.
When in those spaces and those conversations are presented, one of the things that I ask to challenge those spaces is what defines Blackness and how can you define a Black woman's Blackness?
I think being able to show my Blackness is liberating for me and almost a little radical, I think. And being able to be an example for that for other women and those other Black women, Black students on campus showing me support has been really beautiful.
I have a job here. When I took my position of being president of the Black Student Union, I knew that I took my position to help students across campus amplify their voices, whether that's strictly Black students, brown students, POC. So with support or without support, I'll still continue to do my job. They're challenging spaces the way that I want them to. So it's really liberating in that sense to see other people becoming radicalized. Stay true to yourself, honestly. I think, especially when you're in college, these 4 years is a very pivotal moment in your life in finding your identity, and I don't think that you should dim your light for anyone, no matter the race, no matter the gender. Don't dim your light ever.
This project is interesting because it's been a process over the last 8 months. More than anything, this process has shown just how important it is that this work needs to be done, because spaces are currently being taken away from people who have so much to say about things that are pertinent to the current administration, to the work that we need to do as constituents of this nation in order to get our children into these spaces. But more than anything, it is to recognize, acknowledge, and remember the history so that we do not fall into the traps of our past.
Let me say that Dr. Martin Luther King is dead, but his work continues with young people like this that are not celebrities. We've become such a society centered around celebrity, even if we're talking about these TV shows that show people fighting and cussing each other out, and all that stuff is going on. We have to, in fact, recognize that Dr. King's work and Malcolm X's work and James Baldwin's work, all that work goes on. Faces you didn't recognize. They are full human beings that have lived full lives and have made a significant difference in molding and building America. And that's what Dr. King was about. And although he said, I want to live a long life, everybody wasn't. He didn't live a long life. He died supporting garbage workers. We can do at least that. And so in this day, I appreciate you all with your patience and sitting and listening. I think that I wanted to make the point today, as I sang a few things and talked, that the work is not over, although it seems like it is. And so it becomes, as the great philosopher and minister Abraham Joshua Heschel said, some are guilty, but all are responsible. I want you to make a commitment today in terms of what I have tried to present, that what are you going to do? What portraiture memories do you have of any of the characters in this movie that may have different names, but you passed by them in your lifetime? Do you know where they are? Do you know what they're doing? Do you understand when W.E. Du Bois talked about living within the veil? That this movie shows all of these black and brown people living within the veil. Lake and his work and me and the school gave them an opportunity to be heard. This may be the only time they'll be heard, and you've got neighbors and people like that right now that will not be heard. And so, yes, songs and music and drama and all that's important, but it's also important for us to understand that these are the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren of Dr. King and others like him who gave their life for us to sit here today. Thank you so much. We're going to open it for question and answers. If you all have any questions or so, this is the time. Any comments at all? There's nothing that's undiscussable. It's all discussable. So if you have any comments, please, before we break up and go eat or go home. Anyone? Yes. Did you want to?
Looking for the cordless microphone.
Oh, the cordless microphone? Okay. Don't be shy. Anybody want to make any comments at all? Constructive? Even if it's something about the film you didn't understand, you didn't like? Yes, ma'am.
I was just so incredibly moved, and seeing the incredible obstacles that people have, and how it's just awesome to me that people could persevere.
We persevered in this
such incredible difficulties and go on, because you said you're tired, and I'm aware of feeling tired, having been an activist for so long, and you know, you just realize you don't know that. You know, the older I get, the more I realize I really don't know, and I have to be open to learning. And it was just so beautiful, and what you said about not just always, like, there's a kindness, but not being so polite in the face of this absolute insanity that we're going through. And the ordinary people, you know,
and the ordinary
people and,
right,
and just
are still hanging in there
so much. Thank you so
well,
much.
I wanted you all to also, I had another hand up, I wanted you to recognize the power of each individual to tell their story and to be given a forum to tell their story. So often, as Ralph Ellison wrote in The Invisible Man, we are rendered impotent and we just are not seen, and we only admire and elevate the celebrities. These are celebrities in their own right. They raised their children. They went through all of that, excuse my language, all of the shit we went through, but we made it. We went through. I can tell you all that I've had at least 4 teachers when I was an undergraduate student to tell me that they believed I was genetically inferior when I went to their office to get office hours, and they proceeded. You remember the book by Stockley? Do you remember Shockley? It was taught at Harvard and many other schools. Yes, you had a hand back here. Yeah. Ruth, yes, hi, Ruth.
Hi. This is highly emotional for me. I was at Oswego during those years.
Wow.
Yeah. And my husband was a professor there, and one of the key organizers of the anti-war movement, and got arrested there.
Yes.
And I was fighting all the nuclear plants.
Yes.
Yeah, we lived just across from the campus, and I can't thank you enough.
Oh, wow.
I just can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you. And Betsy McTurnan, who you may have recognized, the Betsy Alana who graduated in '68, she has stayed there all this time with her family.
Who?
Her maiden name was Betsy McTurnan, but she is Arletta. And her husband, Greg Arletta, was there. He passed away and she remarried. But I wanted, you have blessed me by saying that.
Did you know Eve Vanaus?
Yes, Vanaus, yes, absolutely.
My next door neighbor and dear friend.
It was a lot of wonderful people at Oswego that helped us through. When you heard the students talking about the hitching post, she understands what that means. Oswego was built up an incline, and on Bridge Street, you had to walk, and the black students, not knowing, you were walking up the hill, and many good-intentioned, good white folks in Oswego would stop and give them a ride up the hill and talk to them about their life from their own perspective, not from some caricature, stereotypical way of looking at us. And so it was very, and I have many fond memories of Oswego. I also have some that are not so fond. But this movie helped me, and that's why I thank Lake for the work he did. Let's give him a round of applause. As a young person who knew which questions to ask and just was in there with me the whole time. Yes, let's get another one here. That's really exciting.
Isn't it
I
wonderful?
can't wait to tell the people back. That was wonderful, yes.
It moved me again. Every time I see the movie, the documentary, the documentation. But what I really raised my hand to say is that, do we understand that this was a public university primarily financed by people like Larry's father, who paid taxes every week that he got paid, but yet his brilliant sons were never invited to apply, whereas others knew it was their birthright. And every time that you show this film, this is what I think about, that you guys broke ground, but it was because of systematic denial of your humanity.
And for most of us, everywhere we worked, we broke ground. We don't get the credit for it always, of how we changed the institutions that we worked at. I won't go into that detail right now, but each one of the institutions I've worked at, when I left my mark. And it was a constructive mark. And I didn't discriminate. I have to tell this one piece quickly. I was the pre-law advisor at Cornell for many years. And I worked with a whole lot of white students and got them into college, into law school. And one day after graduation, one of the white young men was standing outside my door, and he was just standing there. And I had seen him at graduation. I tried to speak and say hello. He was with his parents, and he shunned them away. And he came to my office in tears, and he said, "Dean Watson, I wanted to say hello to you, but I didn't have the courage to let my parents know that the man who had counseled me to go to law school was black. And so I didn't want them to say something insidious and horrible, so I moved away so we wouldn't have to see you. But I want to come back and let you know I'm very sorry." And I mean, what do you do with comments like that? But see how sad it is. So when I talk about pathology, that's pathology. And that's why when the National Association of Black Psychologists wanted to declare racism as a mental health disease, they were stopped, because they said if you did that, there'll be so many black people on disability and Latino people, it would bankrupt the country. Yes. Another, anybody else? Well, I want to thank you. Yes.
I just want to thank you. This is a kick in community church's butt. We've got an elderly contingent that I'm eventually going to join, but not quite there. But these are people who have enormous amount of story and
that's right, and they need to be told.
Historical memory, and we need to do that ourselves. It's just so easy. It's your phone, you know. It's just
that's right.
Such a simple thing, but not so simple to do such a beautiful editing job, like our brother did. And thank you for that, and for everything of this event, this occasion. It's been really great having you. Is there anybody else who would like to say a word, either on the Zoom or in the audience?
Well, yes, ma'am.
One more, Virginia.
I want to really thank you for your opening and for that message that you're here, you're meant to be here, no matter who you are.
That's right.
And how you are.
That's right.
And I think that is such an important message right now. And I'm sure it's hard for you. It's hard for a lot of us because we know we're in a backlash and we're in a backslide. And we've all got to go back up the hill.
Right,
and help somebody else.
That's right, and we're still. Let me leave you all with this quick, just musical note. Just this is very short. I won't hold you up. Ain't it sad about Mary? They took her only son and nailed him to the cross. Ain't it sad about Eve? She could not foresee that the apple from the tree would banish her and Adam from their garden. Ain't it sad? Ain't it sad? Ain't it sad about Martin fighting for human rights? Dying by human hands, shot down by his brother fellow man. Ain't it sad? But if we could start all over again, would we change? Or would we relive all our sins? Ain't it sad?
Thank you, Larry Watson. And thank you all for being here this evening. Please linger. We have a repast here for us to enjoy. Thanks to Luis Guzman, our cook and our janitor of this church for so many years of good work. And thank you to Amar, who did our Zooming and YouTubing, and to you all. There is a collection basket back there. We need your help to make this thing keep happening. And there is also a sign up to keep in touch with you about future programs. And we have a lot of things coming up. Films, concerts, all sorts of things here at Community Church. And with that, we say, meeting is over.